Hi everybody. Before I begin, I'd just like to thank the organisers for this opportunity to share the lessons learned by the Australian banana industry and our experience with TR4. I think the main point that I'd like you to take away from my talk today is that successful TR4 management in Australia has been achieved through effective biosecurity laws, the financial support that we've received, and partnerships which are underpinned by good collaboration and communication. After 5.5 years with the TR4, we've had only 93 confirmed positive plants, which is pretty amazing, and they've been scattered across 5 farms all close together, within 14 kilometres with each other. So we must be doing something right, and this is a result that was far exceeded our own expectations of what we thought we could have achieved. Although Australia is a small producer on a global scale when compared to the world's biggest producers like India with its 30 million tonnes and China, the second biggest producer with its 12 million tonnes, Australia is really like a drop in the ocean with its 372,000 tonnes. In Queensland, the banana industry is a major economic contributor and an important regional employer. In this area alone supplies 94% of the national domestic needs in bananas. Australia is neither an exporter nor an importer, and in this region, banana farms are generally family run, small to medium sized, and there are also a small number of larger growers greater than 100 hectares. So we're really talking about livelihoods, and not just about our growers, but our entire communities that depend upon them. So there are little options for alternative crops. So it's important both regionally and nationally that we maintain a viable industry by containing TR4 to buy time for our R&D to find long-term solutions. So let's start by looking back and where we've come from. The TR4 incursion in 2015 caused a major upheaval in the industry, as it has done everywhere. An incursion located in the heart of the major production area, which receives over 4 metres of rain each year and frequently floods, meant it was a high risk that TR4 would spread quickly. Hardly anyone had implemented on-farm biosecurity, despite TR4 being in the Northern Territory since the 1990s. And generally there was little understanding of the disease, how to manage it, and that it can't be eradicated. So what did we do? First, we used the power of legislation, specifically the state biosecurity legislation that allows farms to be quarantined, dictates what growers can and can't do on their farms, controls access and the movement of people, fruit, vehicles and any material coming off the farm, provides a framework for collaboration between governments, industry and the community, and has the power of monitoring and enforcement for compliance with the Act. And with it comes penalties of up to $290,000 or 3 years in jail. Secondly, we formed the TR4 Management Program, which many of you have probably heard about before. The elements are outlined there. We've got surveillance aimed at early detection and destruction, diagnostic services under a quality assurance program, compliance, which includes the daily supervision of farm activities on infested farms, and the certification of their fruit going to market. Also, a big communications and engagement campaign to ensure greater understanding, encourage early reporting and the adoption of on-farm biosecurity. And of course, there's the planning, policy and administration section. Thirdly, we ran coordinated education and communication campaigns, which were a huge joint effort between government and industry. These were aimed at raising the awareness and understanding of TR4, its risk pathways, and to help growers develop and implement on-farm biosecurity measures that would prevent, delay the spread or manage it on infested farms. They included industry-wide extension and communications that involved a wide range of media and channels. In the beginning, they were broad-scale, dedicated to the industry as a whole, but now they're a lot more targeted. And a vast range of resources were developed and disseminated to the groups here, such as growers, supply chain, utilities and the community. And all of this has led to significant practice change, which is great in biosecurity practices in the industry, like these boot exchanges or farm zoning, fencing and signage. So has made significant contributions. They bought the first infested farm and destroyed all the bananas that you can see in the background of that photo, and they've made significant capital investment in on-farm biosecurity systems. We've also invested a lot in TR4 R&D because we all know how critical R&D is and that the commitment has to be long-term. The spread of the disease has been slowed through the control and containment program, which has been underpinned by scientific evidence. Since 2015, there's been a major investment in R&D from special government grants, and a range of projects have been initiated. Our strategy always involved finding short, medium and long-term solutions, and you can see some of the areas of study up there. In the short term, it was aimed at how to prevent TR4 getting on farms. In the medium term, if farms get TR4, how to prevent it spreading within the farm. And in the long term, when TR4 is endemic in the region, how to maintain farm profitability. So where are we now? Now we find ourselves at the next stage where TR4 hasn't gone away and there's still no solutions to be found. We now have 5 infested farms, but still only a very small number of infested plants, 93 as I mentioned earlier, scattered across a 14-kilometre area. So TR4 is still very contained in Australia. However, it's still possible that the spread will become exponential eventually, as it has done overseas because of all of the uncontrollable risks such as flooding and animals. Our R&D is progressing both in Australia and internationally. The short and medium research that we've done has delivered much greater protection from TR4 and increased our understanding about the disease itself. Our long-term research into management options on how to continue farming when TR4 becomes endemic, and the search for a resistant variety is still underway, but it's making good progress. What have we learned in 5 years? Well, that successful TR4 management, as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, has been achieved, I think, through the effective biosecurity laws, effective financial support received by industry, and the partnerships that are underpinned by good collaboration and communication, and that's what works best. Our effective laws have been really important. They work because they provide a clear, understandable set of rules that everyone must follow, and that means that there's greater security for individual growers. Because the expectations and responsibilities under which individuals, industry and the government have to operate are clearly defined, this facilitates our collaboration with each other. The implementation of strict controls is reasonably straightforward because they are enforceable, and that really helps, of course. But Australians are generally law-abiding and accepting of these rules. Altogether, the biosecurity laws that we've got have really helped, I think, manage the controllable risks to minimise the build-up of inoculum on infested farms and prevent further spread. And without these laws, the spread of TR4 in Australia would have been a lot more rampant. It's expensive running the response, and we would not have been able to do that without significant financial investment that has come from the government, both state and federal. and they've provided the amounts shown in that table and provided in-kind support as well. Industry too has really contributed significantly through its compulsory levies for RD&E, which you can see there, and the biosecurity levy, which contributed to buying the first infested farm and managing it, and two other initiatives. And as I mentioned earlier, growers have put a lot of effort into implementing on-farm biosecurity. We estimate that the average capital investment of growers is about $1,200 per hectare, and average operating cost is about $100 to $400. So these costs have been quite significant to growers, but there is variable uptake of on-farm biosecurity across the industry, and this is still a challenge. Partnerships and collaboration have also been key because you have to take people with you. Effective and transparent communication is really important to make sure that everyone has that shared vision and a desire to actually work together, and allows for a flexible approach. We try to be proactive and not antagonistic, and it's good to remember that one size doesn't fit all when you're dealing with growers. The government even conducted a really useful social research project so that we could better understand the barriers and motivators among growers to the adoption of biosecurity best practice, and that enables us to target our extension efforts more. Australian Banana Growers Council, as the representative body for the whole of the national banana industry, has had a major role in moving between growers, governments, researchers and community and providing that coordination effort. We wouldn't be anywhere without our commitment and cooperation of growers, which is paramount in making it easier to implement these strategies and controls. One example we've had is the regulators working directly with growers on quarantined farms to try and find solutions to how to get their fruit off farm to trade while they're under strict quarantine. The cohesiveness and unity of our industry, I think, is one of its greatest strengths, and it was also identified recently by the growers themselves in our survey that we ran. And this unity has really made it a lot easier to contain TR4. We've got growers of infested properties helping other growers affected by the disease and acting as biosecurity champions for the whole of the rest of the industry. And we really value those growers because they are the most powerful messengers to their peers. Being geographically close, of course, has made it easier for our industry to deliver all these different initiatives, because in North Queensland we're really talking about an area that's 300 kilometres long by about 40 kilometres wide. So where are we going now? In terms of the response, we have been through the emergency phase and the managed response phase, and now we're at the transition to management phase, which is here. So this means that there's going to be increasing ownership of the program by industry and cost sharing between industry and government. The government cannot go on paying forever, so industry has legally partnered with the government to take over running the program by 2023. Over the next 4 years, industry will pay an increasing share until 2023 when the funding's 50-50, such as you can see in the graph where the industry component is represented by the light green. The budget for the program is about $3 million per year, and industry share is coming from that compulsory levy that I mentioned earlier in the talk. The program's goals will continue to be to keep the industry viable in the long term by continuing to detect the disease early, containing Panama TR4 on infested properties, keeping growers and stakeholders informed, and promoting the message that biosecurity is everyone's responsibility, and making the legislation work for government and industry. So what will be the future challenges for Australia? The transition to management by industry, and we are just embarking on that journey. Also, the continued support and investment in R&D for long-term solutions, because research really takes a long time and it's expensive, especially for new varieties. Our growers still need to protect themselves against TR4 because the majority of the industry, apart from the 5 infested farms, still don't have it. So we need to be creative and think laterally about how to keep the industry engaged in order to combat complacency and even denial in some cases, because we're a little bit a victim of our own success. And we need to be careful about how to keep our growers motivated to protect themselves through biosecurity best practice. And lastly, how to slow the spread. We believe the way forward is to continue regulation as long as possible and to continue to partner with growers, researchers and government. Because partnership is what works best. Many of the challenges that I've outlined in my talk today are common to all of us dealing with TR4. Although we live in different countries with different laws, I believe that creating unity in our industries, fostering partnerships, sharing information as we are doing today, and coordinating our activities is the only way to tackle a disease like TR4, both in Australia and globally. Thank you.